Well, because this is a small group and probably self-selected for high interest in these subjects, why, as much as possible, you should direct me toward whatever your special concerns are, so that for each person, whatever their slant, there's a reasonable payback in information. And there may be areas where I'm disappointing or unhelpful, but usually then I can point you toward somebody else or some source. The first thing this afternoon, I'll bring in some books to show you 10 or 15 source books that would help you in researching any aspect of this, whether you were interested in it academically or for personal spiritual growth or whatever. It's very important to be informed. I mean, this is an area where it's very hard to bluff it because, you know, on one level, it's a branch of medical science. I mean, what we're talking about is folk pharmacology. And you really should understand certain things about pharmacology, certain things about physiology, because your life may come to depend on it in some situation. I mean, it's not casual, you know. You want to be able to assess risk and make intelligent choices. So what I usually do in these kinds of situations is go around the circle and try to get a feeling for the backgrounds, the interests, and the concerns of whoever is here, and then tailor what is said afterwards to the needs of the group. So why don't we just do that, and you can tell me, you can tell us your name, and then your particular concern or what you hope to get out of this, just something which will give me a basis then for structuring what comes afterwards. So why don't we go around in good Punpo shamanic fashion, counterclockwise. Sorry, but it was you or this poor soul. Now he can bake and consider which was worse.
Well, my name is Carolyn, and I'm interested more in the herbal lore and the herbal outlets for the purpose of medical use. I'm interested in Chinese herbology and Western herbology. I don't know what else to say. I haven't had my coffee that much.
Well, that's pretty good.
I pretty much covers that.
How many of you are CIIS students? And now that everybody is here, how many will write a paper for this course? So 3. Okay. Yeah.
My name is Brad, and I'm interested in the psychedelic experience and how mankind has used it throughout history and what it's done for us. And I'm interested in herbs and plants in general. I don't know a lot about them, but I'm interested in studying them more and learning a lot more about them, and just present and future applications of how we can heal ourselves and help ourselves spiritually.
I'm Sibylla. Well, I think the overall interest is that I think that in nature, the main secrets of humanity are stored, whether in stones or in plants or in whales or in reptiles. And I think that's to access plants and to know what they carry as main information for us. That's my interest, so to rewrite the relationship not only to myself but to the plants and to nature before we go on with transformation.
That's a great jacket. You don't see beetles as a fashion motif much in this culture. In Guatemala, they sell little beetles in the market on threads that you pin one end of the thread to your jacket and then they wander all over you. They're wonderful.
They glue jewels to their backs.
Yeah, sometimes they jewel them up.
What are beetles?
These insects in the pattern of your jacket. Yes.
My name is John. I'm very interested also in psychedelic experience. In 1970, I had a psychedelic experience that pretty much changed my life and way of thinking. And I've just now, in the past couple of years, come to understand that. And I'm really interested in pursuing that mode of thinking that it sets up in your mind. And I think the psychedelic experience, well, I look at the planet and I see what's happening out there, and I think the psychedelics, plants, and those experiences can help transform a way of thinking to more cope with what's going on out there. That's pretty much where I'm coming from.
My name is Maura, and one of the reasons I'm here is the most interesting experiences I've had in my life come from psychedelics, and that was like 10 years ago when I was in college. And I haven't experimented with them since college for a variety of reasons, your analysis among them. And I've decided in the past couple of months I've just gotten interested in the subject again, and I want to find my own source of psychedelics, and if it means growing them by myself in my garage or whatever, that's the way it's going to be, or going out of the woods to find them. And I thought this seminar might point me in some right directions.
My name is Marge, and I feel I'm interested in the experience, and I'm somewhat of a late bloomer because it's only been a couple of years ago that I first experienced some psychedelics, and I'm definitely interested in the personal transformation involved there. And I heard you talk one other time, and I'm just generally interested in anything you have to say.
Where did you hear me talk?
I think it was at the Whole Life Expo
In LA.
last year on the I Ching.
Oh, uh-huh. Man, if you came back after that performance, you are dedicated. Remember that?
I do remember.
Yeah. Good. Well, welcome.
I'm Tom, and I had my first psychedelic experience in '69 when I was 9.
Oh,
So that, you remember the Halloween candy? So that pretty much set the stage for my ongoing interest in altered states of consciousness.
My name is Janie, and I came last night kind of on a lark, really. I'd heard your name before, and I was really curious about what you had to say, but I didn't know this workshop was going to be happening. But I was really inspired by the things you were saying last night, especially the use of psychedelics as a way to overcome the mess we've gotten ourselves in on a worldwide basis. And that's something that's very interesting to me. I used psychedelics, I guess, for the first time around '76, and I haven't used that much psychedelics in the last 8 or 10 years, but I have done a little mushroom imbibing. So I'm interested as far as personal growth and understanding and breaking through some of the barriers that, I feel like I could break through as far as spiritual growth. But another main interest of mine is I would very much like to be able to share this experience with other people. I have access to a computer conferencing system in Sausalito where I'm very active, and it's really kind of a nationwide conferencing system, and a lot of people from a lot of disciplines are involved in it, and more people are getting involved in it. And one thing that I have noticed is that it's a very bright, aware group of people involved in this system, but they seem to be not very clued in to a lot of spiritual matters. A lot of them are, as far as a lot of deadheads are on it. And of
Is
course,
it the well?
The well, exactly.
Uh-huh.
You talked to Howard last night, right?
No, I've
You knew
been
it before?
aware of the well.
Oh, okay, good. That's what it is.
Do you think that they're not clued in? I mean, without insulting anybody, is it because they're young?
I'm not sure if, like even the deadheads on the well have done a lot of psychedelics, but I think there's a certain resistance among many about accepting the unseen and the unknown.
Uh-huh.
Youth may have something to do with it since they didn't go through the 60s, etc. Also, maybe the stereotypical computer mindset of being kind of linear thinkers. There are a lot of computer people on there, of course. But there are also a lot of writers and a lot of artists. So I don't know if it's just ground that hasn't been tread before and people are afraid to step out in it, or exactly what it is.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, we'll talk a fair bit about computers. Most software, I think, is written by freaks. I mean, if you hang around these scenes where it's going on, everybody has hair down to their waist, and but the relationship of psychedelics to computers and of psychedelic people to computer people and all that is very interesting. So what do you do on the well?
Well, I am just an interested participant.
Uh-huh.
I just log in frequently and have online discussions with people. And I'm considering co-hosting the spirituality conference, which is just shaken loose from two very Christian-oriented people. And what they've done is split out Christianity to another conference. And now the spirituality conference is kind of wide open. So I've been kind of a hanger back. I'm not really one to get out there and start, talking a lot. So it seems like it's a grand opportunity to open up that avenue to people. But speaking of computers, I'm sure I'm talking a lot for a person who doesn't talk much. But I've been doing computer work for 20 years. That's the way I've been making a living. And what I've been trying to do now is find a way to incorporate computers with something that's more esoteric and more aesthetic. So I'm very interested in your I Ching thing. I've also worked with the I Ching for like 10 or 15 years.
Oh, really?
So I'm very curious about what you're doing with that.
Well, I'll be doing a 5-day at Esalen the week after Thanksgiving that'll be entirely devoted to the computer implementation of these ideas about the I Ching. So if you can get down to that, that would be great. Yeah, I love the idea of networks, but I find it very hard to force myself to use one. It's like riding in a taxi, is how I feel about it, because I'm so aware of the money, which is a silly thing because I use electricity in my house, and I don't feel like I'm riding in a taxi. But I got onto the source, and on the source you can word search the membership for interests. So I typed out drugs, and it came back and said there were 850 people on the network who had written that drugs were an interest of theirs. So then I started checking. I said, okay, drugs without sex and rock and roll. Came back 4 people. So I didn't solve all my affinity group problems. Yeah.
My name's Toby, and I think we have a mutual friend, at least one, Terence, Nina Wise, who has been urging me to hear you at the first opportunity, because she says that you have a very original perspective on things. So that was one reason I came, and then after hearing you last night, I'm particularly interested in your ideas on the social implications of these psychoactive substances, and those as an instrument for social change. So that's one interest of mine, and then a second interest is just how your notion of an archaic revival, how that ties in with one of my basic interests, which is the perennial philosophy, and how those sort of interlace or whatever. So those are I guess a couple of central concerns of mine.
So are you a performance artist or something?
No, I have nothing to do. I enjoy the kind of work that Nina does, but I'm more of a philosopher who's just has a lot of different interests, and that's one.
Yeah, well, I've known Nina since we were in high school together, and she, in fact, is the person who introduced me to Kat,
Is that?
who is the mother of my children. So Nina is webbed in there. Good.
I'm Brian. We've been recording and working with Terence for a number of years. And this is the first time I've heard him bad rap sex and rock and roll. I don't know. And musician, and generally the topic is infinitely interesting, so we're here.
I'm Faustin. I like the fact that Terence tickles my linguistic fancy, and that's why I'm here.
I'm Richard, and being an electronic engineer involved in development of advanced television systems, I'm one of those linear thinker kind of technical types. So in part I'm here really for the sort of detail how-to aspect of all this rather than the broad historic anthropological kind of message which I, having attended your Ojai presentation, I think I have the structure of that pretty well in mind. So I'm looking for a little more detail filled in, which I hope this weekend will provide.
So you're looking for filled-in detail. This must be the holy grail of your life, Richard. Richard is involved in high-definition television systems and satellite transmission of high-definition video signal. So the metaphor works on all levels.
It certainly does.
Cameron, do you want to sit in there? You know,
Yes,
there is one
this is
empty
open.
space. I think it was saved for you.
I'm Curtis, and I recently moved to the Bay Area from Austin, Texas. So it's sort of like coming back home. This was originally from California. I was thinking, I got to come here on the spur of the moment. Came to the lecture last night and were really committed to do something else today, and got home and there was a message on the answering machine saying that had been canceled. And so he said, "Hey, we can go hear Terence." And I was thinking about, why do I want to do that? And why do I have that this urge to do that? And I was thinking that I really spend my life, and my professional life at least, working with people in alternative states of consciousness of one kind or another. I've spent a great deal of time in the last 5 or 6 years working with Stan Groff and a number of other people, getting different perspectives, and there are a lot of different perspectives on this kind of work. Stan has a particular kind of model that's very useful in terms of the language that you were talking about last night, of helping people to explain to people what kinds of places they go into that are accessible when they have these kinds of experiences, regardless of the vehicle that they use. Spent a good deal of time working with a woman named Jackie Small, who is one of the on the leading edge of chemical dependency work of all things, and has worked with Stan a great deal in bringing his model of the breath work out, particularly in the United States and particularly in the area of chemical dependency. So that's another point of view. I've also worked with a number of modern day shamans here in the United States. And that's another point of view. The thing that attracts me about Terence's information, which is relatively new to me, I'd heard bits and pieces of it, but it provides me with a more, or I hope can provide me with a more historical, more organic, more depth to the experience over a period of time, rather than this kind of relatively closed psychological or transpersonal psychological perspective that I've had for the last 5 or 6 years of how these materials and how these experiences work. So I'm really looking for depth from the experience to see where it came from over a long period of time and how that fits in with what I do.
Yeah, good. I mean, I'll say more about all that, so I'm processing.
My name is Terry, and I've also just recently moved to the Bay Area from Austin. I had a lot of experience with psychedelic drugs in the 60s and 70s on a recreational basis. Been reintroduced in the last year or two, and I've been doing a lot of personal growth work and spiritual work. And I'm interested in that, and I'm interested in legal psychoactive drugs and growing them and finding out more about them.
My name is Lauren. I'm a second-year student in the anthropology department here. At first, I wasn't going to come to this or the lecture, and then my friend Bob here and another anthropology student said, well, if you're in anthropology, whether you're interested in psychedelics and shamanism or not, you really should have the information. So, and I've never taken psychedelics, unless you include marijuana as a psychedelic. I seem to manufacture my own chemicals. And I was blown away last night. It isn't often that I come across an idea or two that's completely new for me that maybe makes sense, maybe doesn't, but it completely blows away the way I've thought about things. And your whole idea about the evolution of culture somehow being tied to our relationship with psychoactive substances and nature is like, I never thought about that before. and I don't know whether it's true or not, and I'll take it in and I'll study for the next year or two and see whether any of it makes any sense or whether it was from a bad trip. I mean, I don't know.
Just remember, you heard it here first.
I got you footnoted over here. But I really did think there's some brilliant ideas there, and my interest is in the relationship between culture and psychedelics. And I had this not quite a peak experience. I won't say that much, but just a real powerful period of time last night where I all of a sudden sensed like maybe the things that we find in nature were there for a purpose. There's a relationship between human species and our evolution and what's found out here. Maybe there isn't us versus nature, us versus these psychotropic plants. There's just like a, like the I Ching, it's an ongoing changing rhythm, and there's this, we take something, we eat it, we do something, we put it back, our ashes go into the soil, and it was like, I don't know, it must have been a morphogenetic psychedelic field last night, but it was nice. That's why I'm here.
Good, well, I'm glad you came.
My name's Bob, and I'm also a student here at the school. And I'm actually pretty new to the psychedelic experience in the last 3 years. And for me, it's reached a point where I would like to perhaps, I've reached a point that most of the work I've done is by myself. So I'd like to reach a point where I can start to find maps or pathways that can help me to direct myself toward the spiritual, more of a spiritual understanding. And very interested in shamanism and how this ties to psychedelics. And I'm interested to find out how some of these other plants from other parts of the world can be introduced into this culture. And so that's why I'm here, to broaden my knowledge.
My name is Allison, and I'd never heard of you before I came to California, and I listened to a tape of yours, and it was really inspiring. I never realized that psychedelic experiences had such a strong effect before I listened to you speak on the entire populace of the world. I wanted to believe that, but I couldn't justify it from just me thinking that. And the lecture last night was really good. It took me a really long time to go to sleep, and usually I'm a person who hits the pillow and crashes out. I'd also like to find out more about pterodactyls, because I've had problems with other prehistoric beasts before, not particularly those, but and because I'm an artist and I want to find out more how to use psychedelic experiences to propagate art.
Propagate art. Good.
I'm also interested too in how we can go about inviting people that have a wall up against using psychedelics for growth, like family members. How possibly you can get them. I mean, if there's any ways you know of coercing them into doing something they might not normally feel comfortable doing. I have one member of my family that's interested in trying things, but because they're illegal, just can't justify it. And I want to know if there's any way or any place that it is legal, or that, you know of helping other people find that way.
Yeah, well, it's a really intense issue for people, and telling someone that you think they should take a psychedelic compound for purposes of spiritual growth is usually going to set off some kind of very strong reaction.
I don't need it, is what I...
Yes, or you're saying I'm screwed up, or you're trying to poison me, or you're screwed up, or you wouldn't be saying this, these kinds of things. Recently I had to review Marshall McLuhan's letters, so I read all these letters that McLuhan wrote. And one of the things he wrote about was how nervous people got when he tried to discuss the effects of media, the unconscious effects of media. And he said that people who were raised in the tradition of phonetic alphabets were tremendously nervous about having the machinery of reality examined. And I think the drug thing is even more intensely this kind of issue. When I was in the 60s, when I went home thinking I would convert my family to taking LSD, it was very clear to me as I argued with them about it, that the reason they didn't want to take it was because they knew damn good and well that they were crazy. And they didn't want to mess with it. You know, the last thing on earth they wanted to do was probe and explore the mind. They had that all nailed down just fine, thank you. So it is, we will talk about this. Good, well, I'm glad you're here.
My name is Kim, and I think the reason that I'm here is that I'm looking for motivation in life. I think Terence last night termed it effortless, appropriate activity. And it seems that life would be better lived if there was a clear, or if not clear, at least a feeling of where we were going and what needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And there was some knowledge that we were operating with to give just more meaning in life. And so I've spent my life looking into different areas. I studied biology for a time, and have gone into, not too deeply into various Sufism for a little bit, and I'm now doing, I make my living writing computer software. But I find that currently Terence seems to be the strongest magnet that I feel can lead me into, hopefully into a path towards knowledge and motivation.
A tall order for one so unmotivated. Don't make bet on it. Don't bet the baby.
It's only 40 seconds away from it.
True. And one federal felony.
My name is Jim, and I had the pleasure of hearing Terence speak a couple weeks ago in Santa Rosa, as well as listening to most of the tapes. And I was really interested in the idea of the diets of some of the shamanic cultures that apparently are very rich in different precursors of brain chemicals. And And I had also heard about MAO inhibitors that were really dangerous with certain amino acids in the system. Something about fasting before that, so I'm interested in that, and I'm happy to hear you talk about it.
And are you an MD or?
No.
No. Yeah, well, we'll talk about diet and MAO and all that, I'm sure.